Hi everyone, welcome back to the PM Schools YouTube channel. I'm Khanjan and today we have a special guest with us, Lavanya Arora. She is a product manager at Google. Lavanya, thank you so much for agreeing to do this and coming on board. Can you please give a quick introduction about yourself?
Right. Hi, Khanjan. Nice to meet you. Hello, PM School family. Super excited to be here. I'm Lavanya. I'm a product manager at Google Maps. I work in the fraud, risk, and abuse space, and it's been almost 2 years that I've been working there, and super glad to be here.
Wow, amazing. We are equally glad. Thank you so much. So, okay,
Mm.
so today we are doing a metrics-based mock interview question. I'm voicing this out for the purposes of all of our viewers, but usually when you go to interviews, this is how the problem statement will be. So, Ms. Lavanya, can you look at retention as a goal that
Mhm.
you want to work on as a product manager at a fitness app? So this app is into providing tutorials on exercising and fitness, and there are custom diet plans, etc. So all of these are experts who come on the app, and there are customers who are basically they subscribe to the app for
Mhm.
customized plans, or they might be free users in which they would get to watch certain standard videos and they would get to access certain
Mhm.
standard diet charts. So this is how the app is. So your goal is to look at all of the metrics that you would trace or that you would chase to improve retention as a goal.
Okay. So, if I may ask, what do you exactly mean as retention here? Because it varies in the context of different products.
Yeah. Very, very great question. So here, what we look at is based on our business model and how our users behave. We look at a retained user who has been with us for at least 2 months. If they fall off
Mhm.
before 2 months, then we don't call it as a retained user. So yeah, that's the definition of retained users for our app.
Right. So basically, that a user has been using the app for more than 2 months.
Yes,
Okay, got it. So let me just take a minute and structure my thoughts,
sure.
and then we can start.
Yeah,
All right. So I think I have a fair idea of the problem, and if we just look at the funnel for a user joining a fitness app, it could be like in there's an acquisition stage where where we are trying to acquire the users, and then there is an onboarding stage where users have logged in and they've signed up. Now that comes the engagement part wherein they're browsing what all the app has to offer. They're doing the classes, looking at a bunch of stuff. They're basically engaging with the product, and finally, if they're coming back on the platform again, uh, and they're continuously using it for 2 months, that is what we are qualifying as retention. Uh, is my understanding correct?
yeah,
Right. And we then need to define, probably we can define metrics across each stage of the funnel just to see the various touch points and checkpoints, which can help us design other strategies to boost retention.
sure.
All right. So maybe like when for the engagement bit, like when the users are engaging with the platform, we can see the total number of the very basic metric, the actual usage, the duration of the usage of the user,
Hmm.
how much time the person is logged in, when exactly are they dropping off, like are they just browsing quickly and dropping off within 2 minutes or 3 minutes, then that's a feedback for us to improve our search and recommendations.
Hmm.
And maybe it could be a bunch of other things, right? So that's another very important metric to track. Um, if the user look is joining a class but then again dropping off the class, like the number of classes attended and the duration of classes attended, right?
Okay.
So that again is a suggestion and the feedback for us that if a person is trying to sign a class, a person is
Hmm.
trying to be engaged but is probably dropping off pretty soon. Uh, the completion rate of the class is not too high. That means probably the user is not liking the content we are offering. So again, that is a feedback for us to improve and tailor the content according to. And if that's happening at scale, we need to take various measures to combat that.
Okay.
So basically, the percentage completion of the class, the number of classes attended. Again, so it could be like if it's at least once a day, that's super awesome. If it's more than once a day, that's good. But if it's like less than two per week, or maybe just once a week, then it's then we probably need to be otherwise folks might just start trickling off. So that's number of classes done per week.
Okay.
Uh, then other the other things which could be also measured just to give a sense about retention could be like, is the user sort of trying to fill the feedback? Like if you're trying to gauge some feedback after the class, is the user engaged enough to look at the performance, look at his or her stats, the number of calories burned from, or like if there is any feedback, like in terms of how the session was. So how is the user communicating? Is the feedback received, and any sort of subjective content analysis on the feedback. So basically, sentiment analysis on the feedback, just to understand the what's going on with the user and trying to gauge whether the user will stay with us for another maybe 1 month or 2 months.
Okay.
Uh, so something like that. Then again, I think we can check whether we can sort of gamify the platform wherein we're asking users to also refer other folks, and then if they are engaged enough, they are also looking at all of these things, they're submitting referrals. Maybe we can check the number of referrals submitted, the number of times they've shared that message, and things like that.
Oh,
So uh, that could be another metric. Uh, Again, just in terms of retention, as a more general company metric, we can just check the number of daily active users, the number of weekly active users, and again on a month, like a monthly active users, and just see what's our churn rate. So how many users are dropping off the platform per week. So we can accordingly modify our marketing strategies and probably a notification strategy just to bump up that, hey, why don't you join the class? It's been some time.
okay.
So right. So these are the metrics I could think the top of my head for across the funnel. Do you want me to deep dive at any particular stage?
Yeah. So, okay. So now let's assume that there are certain content based drop offs, right? How would
Mhm.
you link that to retention of the app? Because it might be the case that there might be some tutors who would have content which is very difficult to perform or which is very intense, right? And there would be some exercises which would be easy and beginner
Mhm.
friendly, etc. So would you look at any kind of split there? Like I probably you can deep dive a little more on how would you bifurcate the content based drop offs, or would you like to do that at all?
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion because I think we should probably have a inbuilt a functionality within the product wherein we are trying to gauge the intent of the user, as in the person who's joining the fitness class, are they a beginner or are they an intermediate or an advanced, and then try to ensure that the classes they join are for that particular level.
Hmm.
So say some classes are for intermediate, but maybe the trainers are not conveying that point, and a person who's actually a beginner is joining the classes and is not liking the content, or a person who might want to do Zumba is unable to find a Zumba class within that slot and
Yeah.
it ends up doing a yoga class or a weightlifting class and the, eventually drops off because that's not their intent.
Hmm.
So I think in terms of content-based drop-offs, I think one important thing is intent modeling, as in trying to gauge what the user came for. So maybe we can have a metric which looks at whether the like within we can build an initial user profile and see whether the thing the user is looking for is really and the kind of classes which he's signing up or he or she's signing up for. What's the match rate between the two? And if that's too low, basically it means the it's very likely that the user will drop off eventually because the the user is not the product is really not able to match the needs of the user.
Got it. So, a little more on intent modeling, right? Like, would you also have some other, let's say, not metrics specifically, but certain checks
Mhm.
before you pitch content or before you pitch some specific kind of exercises to users? Or would you directly probably study the patterns and then have like a recommendation engine or something? Or would you look at a post facto kind of an approach wherein you would let the exercises be available to everybody, and then you would analyze data and say that, okay, these are the kind of patterns I've observed, and so this is the kind of retention I can observe. So what would your approach be in this?
Right. So I think in the post-COVID world where a lot of physical fitness related things have also moved online,
Hmm.
the aim of these kind of online based fitness platforms should be to emulate what really happens in the physical world, right? So when say a person goes to a gym or a class or a fitness class, essentially their current level of physical activity is gauged first, and then they are allotted different classes or they're allotted a particular kind of trainer. They are really asked and nudged as to tell us what you want, what is your goal of coming here.
Hmm.
So and that is essential for a product operating in a virtual mode also, because if because there again there'll be a need mismatch, like the person is coming looking for something else but the product is offering something else to them. So I think, at least from my perspective, I would rather bug the user at first upfront to understand what his or her needs are, try
Hmm.
to gather those kind of things and build the recommendation engine and basically tweak the recommendation engine according to their needs. So basically they see content which they want, and of course it will gradually iterate over time. So uh, that would help keep the user engaged, and it would give us again more data to actually show what other things they want.
Okay. Okay, makes sense. So, would you also like probe a little more on the time duration that we've picked, right? So, it's a 2 month
Hmm.
time duration.
Yeah.
Uh, and there might be certain logics or patterns which might have led us to pick that kind of a retention cutoff. So, based on that, right, can you give us any ideas on how would you do investigation on that, and how would you basically use that knowledge to define some more metrics which could help you retain better?
So at least from what I understood, probably uh, it it might be an insight into usage patterns, because say people do get bored after doing a certain kind of thing, and they
Yeah.
might want to just try something new. So if we see a consistent pattern, right? Like say 2 months is a pretty long window
Hmm.
uh, for someone who is decently advanced. So we might want to measure the retention of folks who are at an advanced stage, probably at an earlier level, uh, maybe like mid cycle check in, and just to ensure that they are still engaged and the content is still making sense to them. But whereas someone who is just starting on their fitness journey, they're getting used to a bunch of things, they're trying their hands around and like a lot of different things, and just then finding what they really like to do. 2 months is probably okay. So I think I would try to just split that according to the level the person is at.
Sure. Okay. Perfect. So would you like to like probably just sum it all up and conclude
Mhm.
for this problem for our viewers?
Right. So I think we essentially the goal of the problem here was to measure retention for a fitness app, and we defined retention by checking that how many users are still sticking to the platform after 2 months. The way we approached this was look at the entire funnel because
Mm.
retention comes pretty late in the cycle, right? And so it's acquisition, it's engagement, and then it's retention. And we're trying to see where all could be the probable drop off points and how we can, what could be some probable strategies to tackle those, and then essentially uh, get those metrics.
Sure. Okay, that was wonderful. Would you like to probably also add how was your journey from your previous company to ISB to Google, and how has it been working in Google, right? Because it's probably one of the most coveted PM roles that everybody wants to go to. So yeah, just can you share your experience and journey?
Right. So I worked for about 3 years as an application engineer at Synopsys. So that is in the world of semiconductors. And after that, I went to ISB and shifted to product management. So that was like the shift from engineering to product was super exciting. Like I shifted more from an individual contributor role to a role which manages a lot of stakeholders. So that is super exciting. I worked for a short stint at media.net also, and then I joined Google. And working at Google has been great. The thing I like the most is probably the scale it offers because it really pushes you to think of good solutions and not like hacky fixes for something. And also, it's a great way to check your product hunch because, like, if a billion people are using your product, you can't afford to go wrong. Uh, yeah, so I think the my only bit of advice to aspiring PMs would be just to be very cognizant of the fact that big companies and small companies operate very differently. So, like, if you are a
Yeah.
person who likes working in a fast-paced environment or in startups, you probably not like it at a Google or a Microsoft because there's a lot of org structure, a lot of processes to navigate. And similarly, if you are a person who is okay doing all of those things, then probably the big companies can offer you that scale, which is really good for a person, for someone who works in product, because ultimately scale is all that matters, right? So if a lot of people are using, you get a lot of data and you'll understand, you will improve and you'll become better at it. So, just for your overall personal and professional well-being, I think choosing the kind of place you want to work at it should also be a very important decision when one is joining. Usually, people tend to overlook that and just take whatever the role comes, right? Because they just jump on a role. But I think longer term, this factor should be considered.
Very fair point, especially as a product manager, right? Because if you look at product management as a role, it practically entails doing similar things. So, similar qualities are going to be there in any company, but the magnitude at which you will do certain specific tasks will change a lot depending on the
Yeah.
company structure and the size of the company and the kind of customers also. So, B2B is very different from a B2C environment. And jumping into things, of course, it really depends on what comes your way and what are your situations, etc. So especially after COVID, but then yeah, in the long term one should always think about what are their personal goals, what do they want to learn as a product manager, because it's always a learning curve. When you're a product manager, every day you will probably fail at some things, you'll probably succeed at
Mhm.
other things, and people will not appreciate your things, they'll appreciate your work, so it just keeps going on, right? So very valid points. Okay, thank you so much, Lavanya. It was a pleasure interacting with you and doing this metrics question. Metrics questions are usually very difficult to structure because you can go all over,
Mhm.
and so you need to pick up like a theme in the beginning, and then you need to take the flow ahead. So thanks a lot for sharing your structure with our PM aspirants. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you want to connect with Lavanya or me, we'll leave the links below in the description box. And for any questions, you can comment below.